This week's podcast is brought to you by love and wine, and my love of wine, but mostly love for my husband. All right, let me back up. So, let me back way up. Not really. Okay, so this week, tomorrow is, depending on when you hear this, January 29th is our wedding anniversary. And on it this year, we'll be married 14 years. Cheers, cheers, cheers to us. Cheers to love. And also, it's my dad's birthday today, and I'm going to marry these two things. See what I did there? I'm going to talk about both those things. So, in talking about my dad, he's a great dad, the best dad, the most present dad. I love him so much. I was talking to him this morning, wishing him a happy birthday, and I reminded him that when we were planning our wedding, my dad was there. We were sitting down with the reception lady, you know, uh, talking about head counts and food and booze and all that stuff. And so she's like, hey, if at any point in the reception we're running low on alcohol, I'll come to you and let you know, and you can make a decision if you want to buy more or whatever. So anyway, we do the planning, we get married, it's a beautiful mass, got to go over to the reception. Anyways, so me and Grizz are still at the church taking pictures, and the reception has started. And so my dad and all the party people are over there. And y'all, the reception had only been going on for like 30 minutes. Like Grizz and I had not even stepped foot into the reception venue yet. And my coordinator comes up to my dad and says, Mr. Tollett, there is only one case of wine left. Y'all, either we are terrible forecasters or there were just a bunch of drunks at my wedding reception. No, I'm not hating on anybody because it was a celebration of love and that's awesome. But literally, like the party hadn't even started and we were already out of wine. And this was all unbeknownst to us because we weren't there yet. And dad didn't even tell me about this story until the next day when we were on our way to the honeymoon. He was like, oh, yeah, by the way, I had to buy X amount of dollars of wine just to get the party starting. I didn't know. We were having a great time. And I was thinking about that in the last couple of weeks because in the gospel, a couple weeks ago, it was the miracle of Jesus turning water into wine as the wedding at Cana. And it was so similar to our situation. Here Jesus is with his apostles, with his bros, hanging out. He and Mary are there. They're at a friend's wedding. And Mary comes to him and she's like, Jesus, they are about to run out of wine. You got to do something. And he looked at her like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm here. I'm chilling. It's not my time yet. Sorry. And she doesn't accept that. Mary's like, mm-mm. Doesn't even say anything else to Jesus. She just looks at the head waiter and she says, do whatever he tells you, and walks off. Do whatever he tells you. And so then Jesus is like, Mom, now you've put me in this. Okay. So he looks at the head waiter and or the waiter, whatever, the servers, and he goes, take these 6 jugs of water and fill them, or excuse me, take these 6 jugs, empty jugs, fill them with water. And these were no like ordinary like water jugs. These were like all 6 of these jugs containing, if they were full, was enough to contain like 700 gallons of water. So these are like big jugs. So these people went to work. They're like, all right, dude, we don't really know this guy, but he looks like he knows what he's talking about. So we're going to do what he says. So they go and fill up these huge jugs of water. And they bring them to Jesus. Jesus prays over them and they become wine. The water turns to wine. It was his first public miracle. And like the party kept going. And so they take it to go, the head waiter to taste it. And he's like, oh my gosh, this wine is amazing. Like usually people wait and bring out like, the cheap stuff at the end after people have freely drunk. But like, no, you've kept the best stuff till the end. This is awesome. And so there's so many awesome lessons in this. One is that Jesus does nothing small. Like he's always operating from abundance, in abundance for us. So he didn't just say, okay, here's an extra case, that'll get you through the night. He was like, here's the equivalent of 700 gallons of wine. Like these people could have partied for years, y'all. And I guess they did. I don't know. What did they do with that extra wine? I often think about that. So he did things big. And the second thing is, just like I didn't know that we were running out of booze, and then my dad took care of that situation, behind our backs in a good way. Like, we never know what miracle God is working on our behalf in the background. Like the bride and groom at that wedding, they didn't know Jesus had done that miracle. They didn't know they were running out of wine. They were just focused on celebrating. So we never know what God's up to in the background. And all the time, it's something good. And not just a little good, very, very 700 gallons worth of wine good. And thirdly, what we want to hear in this is that Mary says, do whatever he tells you. And I heard that message then on Sunday. And 2 days later, I was listening to Rosary in a Year podcast. And that was the message. Do whatever he tells you. And then the next day, it happened to be Blessed William, somebody's feast day. And that was in one of his quotes. He was talking about do whatever he tells you, reflecting on that. So here I am like, Lord, what are you telling me? I want to do it. Just make it known to me. And at the base level, even if it's not something specific, like, okay, Jesus is telling me to go and do this for my family, or he's telling me to take this job, or he's telling me to write this book, or Lord, I know I'm hearing you say blah, blah, blah. At the base level, what Jesus is saying, if we're trying to do what he tells us to do, he tells us to love God and to love people. Put God first, love him with your heart and your soul and your strength, with all your mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he's telling us to do. So in this week of celebrating my wedding anniversary, I'm going to take that to heart. Love my spouse, even when it's hard, even when it's frustrating, even when he's standing in front of the drawer I really need to get into. How can he be constantly in this drawer that I needed? Why is your body still there? I don't know, but why? But I'm going to love him through that too. This happens every morning. When he's making lunches and I'm making breakfast, get out of my way. I love you, move. Because as we all know, whether you've been married a little or a long time, marriage is not always easy. It's not always cheery. It's not always easy to keep your vows. And I don't mean being faithful. I mean just think about what we vow in our wedding, for better or for worse, in good and in bad, rich or for poor. It's really easy to love your spouse when you're on the positive part of those vows. When things are healthy and good and wealthy, bring it, baby. I love you. But if you're ill, things aren't going well, if you're in a financial crisis, it's hard sometimes. It's hard to love your spouse. And that's why love isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And every day, you got to wake up and choose to love that person who God gave you. Because that's what your spouse is. He's a gift. She's a gift. That every day you open your eyes and you have him, you have her, you thank God for the gift of your spouse, and then you choose to love them. So, babe, I love you. Thank you for loving me and choosing me for 14 years. And Dad, thanks for buying that extra booze. He really came in a pinch. I love you. Happy birthday. All my love forever. All right, y'all. Peace out. Spread the good word. I love you. Bye.